you could see that it wasn't that Srila Prabhupada was in any way drifting off, but actually that he was totally in very deep ecstasy. Many times I experienced that myself with seeing Prabhupada, especially in very place, because Prabhupada had a very deep love for Radharanda Ishvara, and that would be manifest in his childish behavior almost when Prabhupada would, you could see this sort of, when I say childishness, I mean this pure innocence of Prabhupada's darshan when he would come to very place. And it's very, very hard to describe, but you could tell that Prabhupada was sitting with Radha and Krishna, and he was bringing us to them. So, of course, the early days, on the point of view, were that they were very intense, because basically, of course, when I joined, we didn't have any books, we didn't have any restaurants or farms, or all we had was Madanga and Kathol. So our days were very much getting up in the morning, and we'd have a full morning program. Then we'd go on Harinam from about 10 o'clock all day, and we'd stop at lunchtime, 1 o'clock, out in the park, have some prasad. Then we go the rest of the day, all day, and we come back about 6, and then we have our evening aarti, and we'd have prasadam, evening aarti, and then we'd all go back out again to 10 o'clock at night. And that happened every single day, every single week. Maybe Sunday we didn't go out. And so I remember very wonderfully that the morning programs were very, very static. There was an amazing lack of mentalism. Which again I don't see so much of nowadays, but it is there, lack of. So, of course, when Srila Prabhupada would come, needless to say, we would have these gigantic kirtans at the airport, and Prabhupada would suddenly, the doors would open, Prabhupada would appear within our midst, and I always remember that the feeling of looking at Prabhupada was that everyone would actually present whatever he had, somehow a way of reciprocating exactly with every devotee. I became aware of that because there was quite a few characters in the temple, and Prabhupada seemed to know each one of them. And because things were quite intimate at that time, he seemed to know the background to certain devotees. There was only about 8 devotees, 8 brahmanas anyway, and then there was about 6, 7. There was about 6 or 7 brahmanas. So one of the nice things was we got a lot of time to actually be in Prabhupada's room. We would just walk in. Sometimes even when Prabhupada was having Mangalati, I would walk in. And Prabhupada had his own deities. In the very early days, he had his own deities, Radha Govinda. I believe they were Radha Govinda. And Prabhupada would do his Mangalati, and this little girl called Saraswati, she would come in. Saraswati was, Prabhupada had amazing relationships with children. One of the things that, of course, about this recent court case hurt probably more than any other thing that ever happened in Islam is the fact that somehow anyone could try and implicate Srila Prabhupada in these horrible affairs. Because Prabhupada's own mood with children was completely deep. It was never casual. It was actually a very deep relationship. Saraswati would crawl all over Prabhupada at Mangalati, and then she'd go up to the deities and take things off the altar, and Prabhupada would just sit there. And she had a Jagannath she carried on a piece of string, He'd be dragging his Jagannath around the temple. Everyone was freaking out and didn't think it was a very good way to look after Lord Jagannath. Somehow even that Prabhupada tolerated. It was a Jagannath toy, sort of doll. And basically she could go into Prabhupada's room at any time, and she could just basically sit with Prabhupada. Sometimes she would play with Prabhupada, would play with her for ages, not just for a couple of moments. And I saw him do that with a number of children. And I think even his intimacy with her was so fond that even Prabhupada's servant, Purushottam, he later on blew. But I don't think he could handle it. The fact that Prabhupada would allow her just to run riot around his room the way she did. Prabhupada never told her off. Of course, remembering back to those days, also the striking thing was that, of course, the morning walks, the kirtans, the classes, but also Prabhupada's tremendous desire to preach. He would want, practically speaking, everything we did with Srila Prabhupada at that time was based around preaching. When we go on morning walks, sometimes we were walking around London with Prabhupada looking for buildings. Prabhupada would go many different areas of London looking for a suitable building, and there was many journeys we undertook with Prabhupada to look at various churches. Unfortunately, my memory is not perfect. I can't remember everything he would say, but sometimes he would obviously comment upon the empty churches. And many times Prabhupada would be looking at buildings, and Prabhupada would be mentioning how we should get astronomical buildings that we could never afford. One of the buildings, of course, was the highest building in London, which one time Prabhupada was walking past and he said, "Why don't you buy this building?" At that time I think we had about 2 or 3 pounds in our pocket. And we said, "Prabhupada, it'd be very difficult to buy that." And Prabhupada said, "Oh." He said, "At least we get 1 floor. You can get." So another wonderful thing is that because of the few devotees there, after we would have morning class, many times we would sit in Prabhupada's room listening to the class again. And Prabhupada would stop the tape and then ask the devotees, "So what did you think of this point?" And Prabhupada would like to get into debates. He particularly liked if we took the atheistic point of view and argue with Srila Prabhupada. And then I remember one time that, a number of times actually, the discussions would lead from those talks, Prabhupada's lectures. And one time, one devotee kind of secretly asked Prabhupada, he said, "Srila Prabhupada, why do you listen to your own classes?" Which I thought was rather cheeky. And Prabhupada turned to him and looked and said, "Because I did not speak him." And then I could realize what Prabhupada really meant was that the communications from Srila Prabhupada were coming directly from the Super Soul. And therefore, even Prabhupada would be enlivened by listening to him. So, that was one thing that I vividly became aware of, that Srila Prabhupada wasn't acting on his own false ego. Trying to describe that Prabhupada's activities were totally directed by Krishna from within his heart. I think one time when Prabhupada listened to the Krishna book, tears were coming down his eyes. There was the description of order, and the devotee asked Prabhupada why these tears were coming, because he said, such beautiful things, how could I write? So Prabhupada was appreciating Krishna's mercy. Anyway, I need to kind of meditate a little bit on my memory just a bit. Maybe tomorrow I'll just speak a little bit. Give me a chance to focus. I always find it hard to actually just remember proper pastimes, because it requires, for me anyway, it requires me some time to get all the geographical and time scales into place. Because many of the stories I've told before, so I don't like to tell the same one. But exactly remembering detailed ones, sometimes I need to sort of get a little bit spurred on by memory cells that are wearing out.
May I ask you, were you there when Srila Prabhupada was visiting the beaches and having contact with the beaches? Because many times people ask me about this time and how it was.
Well, I saw him when they were just moving out of John Lennon's estate. We just got very close. So technically we were staying at George's house at that time. So most of the contact that I saw was between George and Prabhupada. Although I saw him also mixed with other people, but not as intimately as John Lennon's estate. John Lennon's estate was in a sense it was when the most enthusiasm from the Beatles towards Prabhupada. I think after the episode at the estate, Prabhupada didn't very much like John Lennon or Yoko Ono, because they were on drugs at the time. They were into kind of heroin. And there's actually a famous story. John Lennon had wrote a song called Cold Turkey, which nothing to do with having a cold, of course. But, so what happened was that John had asked Prabhupada to come and listen to this song in order that to get Prabhupada's view. John was very impressed with the song. So he asked Prabhupada to come. Now John had this amazing equipment, which obviously being a very rich Beatle, he had a built recording studio in his room. And his equipment was probably the top range of its day. So Prabhupada, being polite, kind of obliged, and him and Shamsundar and Guru, they went and sat in Prabhupada's front room, in John Lennon's front room, and Yoko Ono was there. So then John decided he was telling Prabhupada about his song, and then he said, let me play you this song. So he put on the thing and it wouldn't work. And he couldn't believe it, it just wouldn't work. And then he went fiddling with this and that and this and that. And he was getting really frustrated because, this is like really expensive equipment. And then Prabhupada said, oh, I also have a song. Because now the time was getting a little bit, running out a little bit. So he said, I also have a song. And John, I guess at that time, was getting fed up with his song. So he said, well, let's try your song. So he put Prabhupada in it play. So that was quite a bit. There's also another time which was associated with John and Yoko. They'd actually, Prabhupada was coming back from a morning walk. And they called Prabhupada in a room. And in that room there was kind of pictures of John and Yoko naked together. So Prabhupada wasn't very impressed with that. And then they wanted to get Prabhupada privately, so they called him in the room, and then they said to Prabhupada, how do you do this? How are you doing it? So Prabhupada said, he basically asked them, how I'm doing what? He said, how are you making your disciples so completely dedicated to you? So they said it in a cynical sort of way, like as if Prabhupada was some, cheap yogi who was using some mystical hypnotism to get the disciples so dedicated. I think Prabhupada just looked at them in kind of disgust and said, Hare Krishna. So right after that, Prabhupada said, let us go. So he left. I think about a week later after that. So with John Lennon anyway, I think John Lennon was basically a very arrogant sort of guy, although people always look at him as some sort of hero, but he was very self-centered and arrogant. I think as far as George goes, there was much more appreciation of Srila Prabhupada's depth and spirituality. One of the things about Prabhupada was that he never compromised preaching. So he never tried to flatter anyone. Many times big people would come and see him. I remember when Donovan came, actually Donovan, of course, nowadays is nothing. In those days he was, in England anyway, he was a big star. And can we not bring this to next time? It's such a little thing, it's like, I'd better put on my nose or something. Like that. Hare Krishna. Yeah, Donovan was a star in those days. And what happened was that a lot of George's friends were coming to Prabhupada early March. George was into racing cars. He had a car made for £500,000. And he's written Hare Krishna all over the car. So fine you can't even see it. And he's got a Lord Shingere, gold Lord Shingere in the car. But anyway, Prabhupada would just preach so heavily. Actually, even Donovan was getting seriously interested, and he brought these couple of groupies with him and a few sidekicks, and they wasn't very interested. So sometimes these kind of room conversations are quite interesting because you can see how Prabhupada never tried to flatter the material situation. He always just was interested in their spiritual welfare, so he would give them every teaching. And he immediately, Prabhupada could see that these friends of George, they wanted to kind of have a guru, because in those days it was very fashionable to have a guru, sort of put a picture on your mantelpiece, and then everyone who would come for some smoking or dope would see your guru on the mantelpiece. So Prabhupada said to Donovan, he said, Guru is not for mantelpiece. And he started kind of chastising. And then the girl who was with Donovan, she said that, she said that, I think she said something like, oh, so you're becoming a little angry, Swami, that's not very spiritual or something. The Brahma said, what do you know about spiritual? I kind of shut her up. I think the word is uncompromising. Prabhupada was very uncompromising. And one time, especially with reporters, of course, reporters were always trying to trick Prabhupada, catch him out. So one time we were in a room with Prabhupada, and the reporters were there. So one guy said to Prabhupada, he said, "So, can you see God?" He said his notebook out. And Prabhupada looked at him and said, "Yes." He didn't know what to say. I said, "Yes, I can see God." He said, "Just as I am seeing you, I can see God." So that kind of shut him up. No more questions. Another time, one devotee asked Prabhupada, he said, "Is the super soul standing or sitting?" And Prabhupada closed his eyes and said, "She's standing." Maharaj. No, I can't. Of course, the thing that everyone loves about being with Prabhupada was the morning walk. And many of the ways that Prabhupada would behave on morning walks, they were always very unpredictable. You could go on a morning walk with Prabhupada one morning, and Prabhupada would be silent the whole time, wouldn't say a word. And the next morning, Prabhupada would talk the whole time. Anyway, I told her, particularly one morning walk that I really shook me. There was a time when Auntie Buddha was ready for us. And I don't know if you know the story, but basically the police came and raided Slush Redder shop, and they took all the money from the safe, which was about, 700,000 benchmarks? Something like 700,000 benchmarks. That money, plus other money, I think, was tied up in a court case, which was, they were donating to Christians. They were going to donate the money to Christian charities. So I was in Bombay at the time, and I didn't know much about the actual details, but I did know that a lot of the money was collected in records. And it was one of the things I was never into, was the record distribution. Because of that, I lost my temple in Edinburgh, which happened to me to close down. And the CDs from that temple are here. So the Irish thieves came and took them. But basically, we were on the morning walk in June. It was only me and Giriraj, Maharaj and Prabhupada, and maybe one other devotee. And like Prabhupada was walking completely silent the whole morning walk. And Prabhupada's concentration was unbelievable. When he was concentrating, he was like, there was something extremely, almost like planetary kind of intensity. So at the end of the morning walk, as we were coming, we would come to the end, we'd sort of leave the beach. And then Prabhupada stopped. And he looked at us, we were standing right next to him, and he was looking at us, and we were looking at him. And Prabhupada would stick his cane in the floor. This time he did it particularly intensely. He dug his cane in the floor. He said, "It is just like the elephant." Prabhupada said, "It is just like the elephant. We accumulate, and accumulates. And his eyes got bigger on each accumulation. And then we were kind of waiting. And then Prabhupada said, and then, what does he do? And then in his what does he do, he was quite angry. He said, and then what does he do? We were also staring at him. And then Prabhupada said, he passed a big stool. And then Prabhupada said again, big stool. As he looked away, he said, that is all. That was Prabhupada's, if you like, conclusion on the German affair. So the money was collected for India, Bangladesh, and it never got there. So I think that was Prabhupada's analogy for that mismanagement. Of course, one of the beauties also in the morning walk was that Prabhupada could bring out very wonderful philosophical depth in the most practical material circumstances. There used to be these tiny little crabs. They're like little, these bugs on the beach. So of course, as we were walking along, these little things would be racing to get to the sea. And sometimes Prabhupada would stop and watch them. And Prabhupada would look at us and say, why are they going that way and not that way? So Prabhupada says the reason they're going that way is because they have the shelter of the ocean. And they know that will give them all protection. Prabhupada said, this is super soul within the heart. The super soul is guiding them. Krishna says, I am directing the wanderings of all living beings. From me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So the knowledge of the little insect is that Prabhupada said, this side there is also so many places they can go for shelter. But they are going that way because they know that we can't get in the ocean. Instinctively within their heart they know, because they're going the dry way, but they're going the wet way, because they know that the shelter is there. Just like a bird, anyway, so Prabhupada gave that example. Very nice example. That similarly he said that the living entity will always be attracted to surrendering to Krishna. Even though it may appear they're not. But the natural, what do you call it, natural dictation of the heart will be towards the higher self. And then Prabhupada will give a whole talk on this Krishna being selfish. There are many things like that. Many points like that. One of the things that used to happen, just to show you Prabhupada's tolerance, I don't know if devotees know this, but Prabhupada used to get kicked on almost every morning walk that he had with devotees. Because always devotees would try to scamper up to be near Prabhupada. And inevitably, when Prabhupada would stop to make a point, someone would stomp on the back of Prabhupada's heel. And I remember one distinct morning, we were coming out of Bury Place and Prabhupada stopped before we actually went on the walk. So Prabhupada said, keep distance. Pointing with his stick like that. And as we were going around the park that morning, poor old, I don't know if I should mention his name, one brother of mine, he stepped on Prabhupada's foot so much that he took Prabhupada's shoe off. And we all just stopped there. And we were so shocked. And Prabhupada just looked around and looked at him like, it was like what she's at the end of the devastation. He really looked, poor old Prabhuji. He was never the same since. So one of the things when we were on morning walk from Bury Place, many times we went past British Museum, and there'd be people walking to work, bowler hats and things like that around that area. So Prabhupada inevitably they'd come and say, "Hey, good morning," and Prabhupada would say, "Good morning," and so we were all good morning. That's not very Krishna conscious. Prabhupada said, "Good morning." But then one devotee said to Prabhupada, he said, "Prabhupada, why do you say good morning and not Hare Krishna?" So then Srila Prabhupada said, "Because, oh yeah, this is right, that people would say good morning to Prabhupada, but sometimes Prabhupada would say good morning to a gentleman when he hadn't even said anything." That was right. So one time Prabhupada was saying good morning to someone, and they said, "Oh, good morning." In a business way. And the devotee said, "Prabhupada, why did you say good morning to him and not Hare Krishna?" And Prabhupada said, "Because if I say good morning, then naturally he says good morning back." And Prabhupada said, when he says good morning back, then he's doing service to the devotees, because he's offering the devotees a good morning. So he said that, therefore, we are engaging in the Krishna service. That one devotee used to be quite frequent. It's called Sukarma. And he used to be, this is one of the beauties of Srila Prabhupada, was they tolerated all sorts of characters. I've never known Prabhupada to, one of the characters he had was called Charana Arvindam, as an example. The Charana Arvindam was about 6'5", and he used to wear an outfit like a big fairy. It was a hippie outfit with arms. They used to have these sleeves that it looked like something like who's that character Merlin. He looked like a huge giant Merlin that had fallen off the Christmas tree. So the thing was that this robe, you used to tie it like Saint Benedict in the middle or something, and then the rest of it was thrown down to the floor. So he would dance in front of Prabhupada doing the Egyptian dance. Now the thing is that in the theater room, that was actually practically up to Prabhupada's level. Prabhupada was sitting there, and this guy would be sitting at the front, and during Kirtan he'd be doing it. And he'd go on the whole Kirtan doing that. Now this is every morning. So then, tomorrow Krishna Maharaj would get really frightened. I think everyone in the room was aware he'd like to pop him or something. But he was an initiated devotee too. So, of course, this thing he used to wear over his dhoti, so bonafide. But the dance was completely concocted. And then we were walking around on the morning walk, and then tomorrow we saw this guy over there, and he pointed to him and he said, "Prabhupada." Prabhupada said, "Yes." He said, "The way that boy dances," he said, "Prabhupada." No, he dances very nice. Well, tomorrow for it. So we had to tolerate that. And to show you these kind of personal reciprocations, that same boy, Baba went away in Pandava once, and he built a huge fountain out of a big lotus flower, this big pink lotus flower in the middle of Baba's garden in Vrindavan. and everyone was getting on his case because he'd gone in there and he was working at it and no one knew what he was up to. And finally, although he was building a lotus flower, okay, but it was a big pink thing. And then in the middle was this fountain. But then when Prabhupada came back, everyone thought, well, Prabhupada's going to give it to him now, but we're going to please the fountain. Prabhupada loved the fountain. And then he called the boy in and he was getting him to make it go higher. When you get it higher, it's not about as high as that tree. And there was another time when all the devotees had come into Prabhupada's room. And it was Prabhupada coming to Vrindavan, so we all went in the room. And Sacinandana at that time was temple president, and he was getting a lot of flack from Prabhupada about the management. So what happened was that after all the devotees left, because I don't know, Prabhupada's room, they used to put the sheets down, so all the stuff, the dirt from the dust from devotees' feet had gone all over Prabhupada's room. So when they all left, the room was packed. So when they, I think it was Central Park or something, but when they left, the whole place was full of dust kind of here and there and everywhere. So then Prabhupada turned around to Sacinandana and said, "What is this? It is very dirty." I think it was one of the rasas he was having with Sacinandana kind of like keeping everything very clean. Because by this time everyone had gone and Prabhupada was talking to Sacinandana and a few other devotees. And this boy Sacinandana was in the room. And he said, "That's not Prabhupada." He said, "That's the dust of the feet of the Vaishnava." "Oh, you are right?" "Just see my crooked vision." The Prabhupada smilingly accepted chastisement. That happened another time too when Prabhupada was, there was this, of course, this famous installation at Amsterdam Temple. So Prabhupada, everything was wrong. Everything about that installation. Did you go to that one? I was there. Yeah. The one about the hippie baptizing brother? Yeah. So Prabhupada was actually chastising in front of the cameras and everything. Chastising like that. And then there was this hippie sitting next to Prabhupada. He was still bucked up, but he was kind of hippie. And he said, I think he said something like, "Oh, Prabhupada, you're always telling us when we get angry, chant Hare Krishna." And Prabhupada said, "Yes, very good idea." "Bring me my tea bag." Prabhupada, in Vrindavan, of course, when we opened the Vrindavan temple, there was a very kind of sort of rasa going on between Prabhupada and management. One of the things Prabhupada wanted to hear, the chowkidar, which are the night askaris, they're the night watchmen. They have to ring the bell every hour. And Prabhupada, no matter what he was doing throughout the day, would know that what he was doing. And he would, even if it was 1 o'clock in the morning, he would wake up the temple president, he would wake up the BBC secretary, and he would bring them down to his room and chastise them because the bell wasn't enough. Now many people may have thought that was a bit extreme, but actually those night watchmen are the only difference between getting murdered if the thief come and staying alive, because at least they can raise an alarm. And Prabhupada was worried about that. Now one of the things that Prabhupada asked was that the bell should be hung from a tree. there was a tree in Prabhupada. I think it was it may have been the tree in the temple room. And Sarab said to Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, I built a special bell tower for the bell. I said, no, tower, look. And I said, yes, Prabhupada. But every time the string breaks, the rope, because what was happening was that it was cutting on the concrete or something. For some reason, anyway, the bell never worked there, so they had to take it back down and sort it out. And there was another time when this would show you how meticulous Prabhupada was. We were walking around the rooms with Prabhupada inside the Krishna Balaram temple. And we got into one room, and Prabhupada sat down in the room with his cane, and he's standing around him, and this was going to be the light membership reception area when you come in on the right, the room on the right as you come into the temple. So we're sitting down there, and then Prabhupada looked around at us and he said, why are you allowing illicit sex in this temple? And everyone started looking at each other. It was a big revealment. And everyone said, illicit sex, Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, yes, there's illicit sex going on in the temple. Really, Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, yes. And then he pointed with his cane and on one of the chandeliers. So he chased them out. And then we put this wild mesh up the Come on, Maharaj, Maharaj. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vedaya Bhutale Krishna Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Pradane Nirvishesha Shunyavani Ashrajari Shakane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Yamita Gadadhara Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. When Tribhuvanatha was explaining about the Prabhupada pastime, I must tell you very honestly that I have not seen the Prabhupada so many times, in so many situations. And I will tell you a little bit how I met the Prabhupada, because you will be able to see through my own experience and my own realization of him. A little bit of his glory. In the Srimad Bhagavatam there is a very nice verse explaining about the pure devotee traveling, spreading Krishna consciousness. I will just take this thing and follow it, I think. Oh my Lord! Great philanthropic souls travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead
So show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. One of these fallen souls who was and may still be averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord is sitting here, and I would like to tell you a little bit how Srila Prabhupada operated on me, what he did to move my heart and so on. I had come with the devotees from Hamburg to London because we heard he would come after the Rath Yatra ceremony in America. He would come to London, but he was delayed. He went to another unplanned ceremony, and therefore we had to do our London Rath Yatra on that day. It was out on that outing. It was 71, and I remember the temple commander of the birthplace at that time was Tribhuvanatha Prabhu, who was taking care of me. He showed me the rope. I still had long hair, quite long hair, and although I came from a very rich family, I had to rest on the staircase of the burial place. I remember it was so overcrowded. And Tribhuvanatha Prabhu had a little motorcycle and was doing his temple commander errand on this little motorcraft. Anyway, so Prabhupada came late, and
It's that now. Krishna? Yes, this is half death. So, then finally Srila Prabhupada of arrival in London was set. We went all from the burial place to the temple, to the Heathrow airport, and his plane was still delayed, so the devotees were all sleeping in the Heathrow airport on the lounge, almost like, the associates of Pandava who were in the forest roamed by Krishna. We were all over the place until finally there was someone said, "Oh, Prabhupada is coming." This was the magical sound in the airport, bring life to all the devotees. I think we should decide, because our attention is so weak in Krishna consciousness that we pay more attention to the technique than to the talk. So I feel no technique because the talk is prominent. Yes.
So, Prabhupada is coming. This was the call which came to the airport. I remember someone shook me up, and we all went to this toll clearing place where Prabhupada had to show his passport and deal with the immigration people. Finally, when he was finished, he was coming from behind, from the unseen to the seen. He came from behind the gate somehow into our view. And we had started a short kirtan to not be stopped. But then when Prabhupada came, the kirtan just exploded. And I remember I was full of mysticism at that time, having learned from the shamanistic tradition and other European traditions about, what they call spiritualism. And when I saw Prabhupada entering into my view, all of a sudden I saw a huge unearthly light. It was not like the neon light in the Heathrow airport. It was a light of a different sort, and it was emanating from Srila Prabhupada. And I remember being so shocked that I threw myself down in my first Dandavat obeisances. I was remembering at that time the burning thunderbush from the Bible. You know, when Moses received the sign of God, he saw a burning thunderbush which was full of light, but which did not burn into ashes. And it was dangerous for Moses to look into the fire because it was destroying the eyesight. So I was thinking, in my innocence, if I look into in Prabhupada's face now, my eyesight will be blocked forever. He is so luminous. So I threw myself on the ground like a German soldier who avoids to be hit by the atomic radiation or some bomb. So remember, I waited on the ground until Prabhupada with an unearthly light would pass me. After some time, I don't know how long, maybe a few minutes, I slowly came up from my obeisances and saw right before me a pair of house shoes. Romita house shoes. My first thought was, coming from a so-called good family, who in the world has the nerve to go in house shoes in an airport on an international flight? So I looked further up and I saw the dhoti. Then I looked totally up and I looked into Prabhupada's smiling face. He looked at me with an eye, how do you say, expression. Welcome! Welcome back! Many of Prabhupada's disciples have this experience that when they met Srila Prabhupada, they, for the first time, they felt very familiar and very much at home. And immediately they felt, I can give my whole trust and my life to Srila Prabhupada. So also I had never seen Prabhupada before, and I had expected a total different size of him, because from his lecture tapes he sounded so huge and so mountain-like and so extremely influential. But his physical height was very small when I saw him in actual presence at the airport of the Heathrow airport. But he commanded so much respect that I had to throw myself on the ground, a gesture which is highly unusual for a German. Then Prabhupada stood before me, glanced at me, saying, "Welcome, welcome, welcome." This was my first impression. Now, Prabhupada used to lecture every morning in the Bury place, and the first thing which I realized when Prabhupada lectured is that I had the feeling he's talking only for me. When he made a point, for instance, I felt that his eyes were resting on me, and it was a point which was relevant in my spiritual life. Many devotees in the audience had that, when they listened to Prabhupada's lecture, had this feeling that he engaged them totally and involved them totally and talked only to them. At that time, my family in Germany was very worried that I would become a spiritualist, and they would send all kinds of relative people to come and persuade me to come back. My grandfather was dying at that time, and he demanded that I come back to his deathbed. But I had to say, no, I cannot, because I knew when I would arrive at his deathbed, he would ask me to give up Krishna consciousness, a thing which I could not do. I remember being under a lot of pressure. My girlfriend came and wanted to request me to come into material life, and so on and so forth. And I was always heavily engaged by Tribhuvanatha Prabhu, our temple president, temple vice president or something. It was, I couldn't sleep because there were only the stairs. And I was under so much pressure, you cannot really imagine. So I decided what I had learned from the German students to go away in Anna, to bloop in Anna. And the only possible way to do this was for me to involve Prabhupada in a contradiction which showed that his philosophy was not correct. You can see now it gets ready for a battle. At that time, so I asked Prabhupada a question. You say Krishna is the creator of everything. Is this correct? Yes. You say Krishna is all good. Yes. Then why did Krishna create Maya, which is not good for us? Prabhupada looked at me. First, he looked at me to find out where I was at. Everything became silent. And then Prabhupada made a transcendental explosion in the room. He only said one sentence in answer. Not Krishna created Maya. You created Maya. And that sentence went like an arrow into my heart. I do not know what happened. I cried. All my arrogance was really gone. I cried because one thing was clear. I couldn't put the fault at Krishna. I was at fault for my misery. I didn't understand his answer to be quite clear. Now I understand his answer philosophically. Didn't understand at that time. All I knew is I was at fault, Krishna was not at fault. And I decided to join. I decided to shave. It was a big attachment at those times, the long hair. Ooh, they were cultured over years. Became very... Somehow my attitude towards Prabhupada changed. I remember I was waiting for sometimes an hour before the window in Bury Place to wait whether or not Prabhupada would show himself on the window. And sometimes Prabhupada would come. He felt my calling. He saw that lonely little boy. I was only 16 years old before the window, and he just waved to me and pacified me like a father would do. Then I understood I want to serve Prabhupada, and every day I went with one German devotee called Vasudev, the artist. You remember? Yeah. Vasudev, yeah. I went out on Sankirtan and we sang in the streets. We were only the two because not all the devotees would come with us at these unusual times. We were enthusiastic to spend in the night and in the morning and everywhere. And we would just dance on the Oxford Street, the two of us, and chant Hari Bol, Jai Prabhupada. We were so enthusiastic. Yes, then I will tell you in conclusion, well, many things which happened in the London time, but I will just tell you one thing in conclusion. Prabhupada came and visited us at Schloss Rettershof. That's the place in Germany which became quite well known in the history of the European Hare Krishna movement. It was an ancient castle, and it was a quite big castle, very nice. Prabhupada always said, I like this place, Schloss Rettershof. And so Prabhupada came to visit us and to tell you how our leadership was he made a poster in the area to announce Prabhupada's coming. It said, "Der Führer kommt." It says in big letters, "Der Führer," the Führer, and in small letters, "of the Hare Krishna movement." In big letters, "Kom." Many people were annoyed with this because most of the Germans feel very embarrassed at the mention of Adolf Hitler, the Führer. Some well-known people which we had invited to come said, "What is this, der Führer? Are you associated with some crazy political revival movement or what?" We had to clarify this. But when Prabhupada was in Germany, many well-known people of the German intelligentsia were coming and discussing with Prabhupada. And what I saw is, when Prabhupada discussed with these leaders of society, they became very, very impressed with Srila Prabhupada. There was one famous priest who was so impressed that he paid his obeisances afterwards to Srila Prabhupada. Another famous philosopher was there, and he said to Prabhupada, "You are just like my older brother." Srila Prabhupada was really enjoying to talk with these leading people of society, and he was always somehow win their hearts over. Once a man from Turkey came, who was totally Turkish. He could only talk about the family and had no idea of philosophy. But Prabhupada would just patiently hear him out. For 1 hour he would ask him questions about his Turkish family, understanding that the man was not open for something more. He was very, very accommodating, in other words. Once Prabhupada gave a public lecture, and 2 German men were saying to Prabhupada, "You chant so much, this is self-hypnoticism. This is hypnoticism." And Prabhupada just answered, looked at them and answered in this very innocent way, not taking the aggression. "No, this chanting is self-purification, not self-hypnoticism." Then I remember at the public program, Prabhupada met together with my father, who was very angry at Srila Prabhupada because 2 of his sons, which were meant to become managers, had actually become devotees. And my father was very, very hurt, the attached father. And so my father said, "Your movement is doomed to fail, because how can you bring something which belongs to India to Germany? It's almost like taking a crocodile from the river Nile, which is Nile, and trying to transplant it into the river Elbe. Elbe is a river which is in Germany. What will happen to your crocodile? It will die. So your movement is doomed to perish, because it's from a different culture, and it can't make it in this culture." So Srila Prabhupada, again, with the same eyes with which he had looked at me, finding out where my father was at, he said like this. He wanted to make the point that Krishna consciousness is beyond mundane cultures, Indian, Western, European. It is transcendental and spiritual. So he looked at my father and said, "No! You can become Krishna conscious in a suit and tie." And my father remembers this answer to the present day. He has understood Krishna consciousness is spiritual. It doesn't matter what culture. You can even keep the Western suit and tie and be Krishna conscious.
So then one day, now I will tell you something, but you must be attentive, otherwise, because it's very private, and when you do think you are everywhere with your mind, you won't catch it. It was my deepest, the fulfillment of my deepest desire. I am a very emotional person, and I wanted to always be close to Srila Prabhupada. And I think Prabhupada knew that, and made an arrangement before his departure, so that I would have a close encounter and close service to him. It was one morning when he was in Schloss Rath, and Satsvarup Maharaj came out of the room. He was only dressed in a gamcha. He said, "Quick, Prabhupada has said to me, he wants someone to massage him. I have a fever." And Prabhupada said, "No, you have a fever. You should not massage me. Find someone else." So Satsvarup Maharaj was going out and finding someone to massage Srila Prabhupada. I was sitting at his door, at Prabhupada's door, writing a little afterword for one of our books, a little about the author. And Satsvarup Maharaj came out of the door and said, "Quick, can we find someone who can massage Srila Prabhupada in my stead?" And I said, "Well, Tribhuvanatha was massaging Srila Prabhupada in Hamburg. He knows." So then we tried to find Tribhuvanatha, but he had just gone shopping. So I came back to Satsvarup Maharaj and said, "Tribhuvanatha is not there. I don't know anyone else who knows how to massage." Then Satsvarup Maharaj said, "So much time has gone, can you massage?" Never done it. Anyways, he said, other devotees have massaged Prabhupada. He usually tells them what to do. So all of a sudden I found myself before Srila Prabhupada, a young boy of 18 years. I was blushing, I was sweating, I was so nervous. Prabhupada saw me before him, a heap of misery. Prabhupada looked at me in this matter-of-factly way, and in a very deep voice he said, "Just do your service." So I was accepted, I was a masseur. And I remember Prabhupada sat near the door, near the window, bathed in sunshine, and his body was already covered with, no, wrong. He told me how to apply the mustard oil, and then he told me how to apply the massage from where his gamcha was up his back, like this, in these movements, with the hands like this. And Prabhupada, what was amazing is he always said, "Harder, harder," until I was with my whole weight. Prabhupada, he just sat like this, and I was thinking, from where does he get the strength to not be pushed over? But I was not hard enough for Prabhupada, I remember. Finally he looked at me with a face of disgust and said, "What do you do for service?" I was too weak for him. It was not hard enough. And then I said, "Prabhupada, I'm trying to translate your book." And I was a translator at that time. And Prabhupada immediately became sympathetic. I remember he almost accepted me as a colleague. It was this collegial atmosphere. And he said, "How many pages a day?" And immediately I gave, of course, my very best number. 21 pages of Krishna book a day. We were doing Krishna book at that time. 21 pages, Prabhupada asked. And I said, Prabhupada, actually, on my best day. Normally between 12 and 15. And Srila Prabhupada, he had caught me red-handed. And then he said, he looked at me and told me how important it is for him to translate these books. He was very hysterical. So anyway, so the massage went on. Prabhupada was mainly silent. But then he looked around to me and he said, actually, I've told this to Manu Prabhu's wife today. Actually, a devotee should be four things. And he looked at me and he said, he should be a good disciple, he should be a guru, teaching others, he should be a water carrier, and he should be a cook. This water carrier, I understood, I talked also with Sacinandana Maharaj about this, and the understanding that we had is that the water carrier serves the village when it's dry, that which is most needed, water. He's a servant of everyone, and a cook. So Srila Prabhupada said this. And then I remember all the time when I was massaging him, I just had one idea. Oh Prabhupada, please let me massage your lotus foot. And I was very young. My mind was, I can't imagine that he allows me to massage his lotus foot, because it's such a blessing to touch the feet of the spiritual master. And then we were almost done. I had done everything except the foot. All of a sudden Prabhupada went like this. Took the foot, placed it on my lap, right there. And I almost jumped up in ecstasy. That was so good. Then I massaged him. And then he asked me to crack his toes. You have to crack the fingers and the toes. Now, every biology teacher in Germany tells you that is the thing which you are not supposed to do, to crack the hands or the toes, because it is bad for the joints. So, Prabhupada wanted me to crack it, and I said, Prabhupada, this is not healthy. No, it's very good. It gets the air out. and then yes, we cracked first the fingers and then the toes. And I remember, the louder the cracking was, the more Prabhupada smiled. I liked it very much. So this was some of my memories. I want to conclude now. What is very difficult for someone to understand who has not met Srila Prabhupada in person is the way Prabhupada very quickly and lastingly affected people who just came to him, even for a short moment. Srila Prabhupada, however, he maintained that it is possible for everyone to meet him by meeting him in his literature or the books. Srila Prabhupada, how do you say, potency to touch people's heart is, in other words, not limited to meeting him, because for many of you, this is not possible to go back in a time machine into the year when Prabhupada preached here. But I want to say it is very, very important for all of us to meet Srila Prabhupada in the other way, in the Vani way, in the way of his book. Indradumna Maharaj always tells how Pontius Pilatus, how do we say in English this word? Pontius Pilate. He was aware when he judged, I think he didn't even want to judge Jesus, that if Jesus would be gone, he would still have a lot of potency to affect people's hearts. Therefore he requested him, listen, we will not punish you. You just say everything I said was not well considered, it was wrong. He said, no, it is not possible. And then Pontius Pilatus asked him, when are you more dangerous? When you are alive or when you are gone? Because he was clever, he understood that the message, the Vani, would continue even after the person working. So it is possible, also in this case, in the case of Srila Prabhupada, that your heart gets permanently touched if you manage to contact Srila Prabhupada in the spiritual way, in the way of his Vani. I would highly recommend to all of you and all of us to daily make it a practice to read in Prabhupada's books, and sometimes just so that you know how he moved, how he was, to look at a video. Also it is highly effective to listen to Prabhupada, to listen things about Prabhupada by hearing these nice narrations about Srila Prabhupada, how he worked, how he affected devotees. Alright, so this is very important for all of us. Don't think that only the Prabhupada disciples are the selected few who have the ability to be transformed and contacted by Srila Prabhupada. This would be true only if there would be only this one way of contact. But because there is Vani, or contacting through instructions, hearing instructions, and more than anything following instructions, you should all enter into the laboratory of Vani, and in that laboratory make scientific, or let me say, make personal experiences of Prabhupada's transformative Shakti. We will end here. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai! Srila Prabhupada ki Jai! Srila Prabhupada ki Jai! Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Chaitanya Jaya Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Chaitanya Jaya Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare